Welcome in. You are speaking with the Meeple's champion, and we are finally at the top of the list. We've been going back through our 365 days of reviewing. We've been ranking them from worst to best, and today we are on the final 15 games. My top 15 games, my favorite 15 games, or possibly occasionally my most anticipated games. And here we are. Let's jump right in. Number 15 is a new game that came out this year. I've gotten to play this game once with my wife so far. I've been waiting to play it at a bigger player count. But I got it at PAX East. It's a game that I was really excited to try and was pumped to finally get to the table. The game is called Flamecraft. Now, Flamecraft was one of those games that it was a cool theme. The setup felt very unique to me, the way that you were, where are you going as you use it? It's going to start to increase in its ability. It pays out more and more and more the further you go. You can max it out with the dragons used to go there, as well as the different usages of the actual spot, and you can get it to have potentially up to 6 bonuses added to it. So it can be huge payouts later on. The idea of this game is just, for me, so much fun. I loved it too, and I heard it gets more chaotic and fun with the more players that jump in, because you're not adding anything. It's the same game, it's just getting tighter spaced. So I'm really excited to try this at a higher player count. I think this is going to be one of those games that it's going to end up being one of my highest played, both for my game nights, but also for my family nights. Number 14. This was a game that I kickstarted, and when I first kickstarted, it sat on the shelf for over a year. But when I finally pulled it out, it was a huge hit with my family. When I pulled it out a second time, it was a huge hit with my wife's family. And it's one I want to play with my friends. Even though it's not a normal, regular game night game, I feel like it could work for them too. The game is called Dice Miner. I just love the concept of all these different dice that randomly get rolled into the mountain, the way that you're pulling them, that you can use the beers to give somebody else a special kind of die while also getting yourself the ability to jump in and grab twice and have an extra strength so you can pull from harder spots. The idea of score, move so many dice to the side to re-roll, and then the rest of the dice you keep, and then you go on to another round, and now you have all these extras, and you just keep building and building and building. 3 rounds of this, and by the end of it, you're just packed in dice to pay out for you. I love this game. I think this plays just as much fun at 2-player, 3-player, or 4-player. I have the little expansion that they put out when I got it. I don't know if they're going to do another one, but I would be totally game for this having another style of maybe new dice to add to the mountain, more characters to add, some kind of a twist, because this game feels like it has all sorts of opportunity to continue to grow. Number 13. This is where I was talking about those anticipation games. I backed quite a few Kickstarters, and when I was getting a little bit tight, I reviewed a few of these, and when I had to do my ranking, it wasn't just about a game that I love or a game that I can get to the table more often. It was about a game that I was anticipating. Kyperium is a game that I am anticipating at such a high level. I watched an entire 2-hour playthrough of this game, and everything about it, the theme being in space, and yet somehow it's only a 2-player game, which is rare for that theme for me. The ability of, when you're playing it, placing cards out into your grid, and then they're going to activate, and you're spending your stuff to the other side and activating spots there, to then getting payouts for what you get for how you're making your points. This game looks unique, looks fun. It looks like a game that my wife and I will enjoy, but I think me and my sister will love it, and I think there's a couple of my friends from my game night that are going to beg to play this game. I'm so excited for Kyperium. It's extremely high ranked for me. This should be coming in, I believe, anywhere between September to October. I hope I get it on time. I know Kickstarters can go late sometimes, but so far, I've had, of all my big investments, 3 of them come in, 2 of them were on time, and 1 of them was a little early. So I'm really hoping that this one's going to end up being on time. Cannot wait to get it to the table. Number 12 is another anticipatory game. This is a game that's also a Kickstarter. It's one that I am so excited to play, and the game is called Delta. Now, the concept of taking a game that is a steampunk feel, and yet it's being done in almost like a rainforest. It's being done with the animals and the environment, and you're going out here and you're making your way through and discovering these steampunk animals. I think it's such a cool mashup of IPs. It's not one I ever thought I'd see. Delta almost feels like it's its version of the Amazon. It's just Delta is the steampunk Amazon. And I love the idea that you have 3 pieces to your board, and that you have to go to all three, but it's your choice in what order to go to them in. So you're always going to take the same rough estimate of actions, but depending on the order you choose them in means your dominance of the action. So you're going to be dominant somewhere because other players are not going to get there before you. So it's going to give you a leadership consideration of, well, you went directly into the map, so you're going to get first choice in where you're going, which gives you an advantage of everybody else because now they have to pass through you to get to other spots. So it means that they're going to have to give you advantages there. Or I'm going to go in on the animals, which means I'm getting first dibs there, which means that you're going to have to come get the sloppy seconds. Or I'm going to be the first one to go in and invest in the travel opportunity, and that's going to give me an advantage there, and you're going to have to offset it by coming in. The idea that everybody on their first turn could essentially get the advantage if they want, unless for their very specific reason you feel like you need to invest somewhere to keep up with somebody. Oh, well, I know I'll be second there and you were first, but I can't be third. So I have to give up being first elsewhere and let everybody else have that opportunity to keep up here. It's all up to your game plan, but I love this game, the way it's designed. This is another one I watched the full playthrough of. It looks like a game that I could easily be putting into top 10 next year. I'm so excited to try it. I know that the likeliness is that all these games I've put down on this list of games I haven't played yet, but I'm anticipating, the likeliness is I'm going to have a couple failures. If you have a game that's ranking your top 200 and you haven't actually played it, the odds are out of 5, 6, 7 opportunities, you're going to have 2 or 3 of them that just fall flat. And maybe Delta will, maybe Kyperium will. But for right now, I'm anticipating these two such a high level, I can't help but place them here. Number 11. This one shocks me because at one point it was right there for number 1. And yet it's fallen out of my top 10. Dogs of War. Dogs of War is a game that was one of my first big Kickstarters. The idea of this game to me is perfection in a game, where you are going to randomly have the houses set up for fighting, but the houses aren't doing the fighting. You and all your opponents represent the different mercenary groups that are competing, and the instant you commit to one side of the battle, that's the only way you can go. But just because you commit to a battle here doesn't mean you have to keep fighting there. So if you're having 3 battlefields with 6 houses and you commit to A versus B and you give a guy to the A, well, you might follow up by the next 4 times you drop troops, they're going to the C battlefield. And all of a sudden D is like, oh shoot, I put in something weak, he put something weak, she put something weak, and then you came in heavy and started dropping the power cards here and took this with ease. I love the fact that there's multiple battlefields, that you're investing in trying to get better warriors for your fights. Are you going to come in with somebody weak, or are you coming in with your basic soldier, or are you having a knight, or are you going to come in even higher and you're going to have essentially a trebuchet? What are you committing to? The powers of 1, 3, 5, and 7 for your drops. Are you getting cards that are going to give you special abilities to play? Are you investing in trying to get more money and trying to get more extra, the victory points? Are you going after the flags for the different houses and hiding VP so people don't know where you really are? And then at the end of the game, you reveal, guess what? I have a boatload of flags of purple, and purple won the most battles, so my victory points are actually tripled for the flags. There's so many ways to approach this. It is a game that I have played it at 3, at 4, and at 5. It does not work well at 3. I don't think it works very well at 4. This is a game that I really say is a 5-player game. You can play it at 4, it's okay, but you really need this at 5. When you play this game at 5 with 3 battlefields, it is one of the most perfect plays I've ever had. I've tried this with game group, I've tried this with family, I've tried this with my wife's family, I've tried this with outside of all these groups with other friends, multiple friend groups, and I've never had a bad game. It's always been a blast. Love this game. Number 10. This is a Kickstarter that I had my mom back for me. She actually, there was a screw up, and I always find it funny. I wanted it for my birthday, and I saw it over the summer, and I asked my mom, hey, will you back this game for me? She said, I know I don't do this, and I was like, it looks like it's delivering around my birthday. It could be a little late, but that's okay. It costs how much I would want. You always spend $100 on me. This is the cost of the game. If there's any extras, for shipping or anything, I'll throw that in when it comes in. She said, sure. So we backed it. I thought I backed the complete thing. Well, as it turns out, there were 3 big and 1 little expansion for it, and I had her back all of that. And by the time I realized it, the game was no longer on Kickstarter. So I had to go find a store, that had also kickstarted it and pre-ordered the base game myself, which was another $100. So suddenly I was like, oh man, I'm paying more than she is now for this whole game. Well, the game finally came in, and when it came in, I got in my expansions that my mom had backed for me, basically the first possible day they could come in. But the store didn't receive its Kickstarter for almost 6 more weeks. So I had to wait 6 weeks until they got their Kickstarter, and then I finally got the confirmation from them, we've received the Kickstarter, now we can send it to you. And I had to wait another week plus for it to get from them to me, because it was like North Carolina they were sending it from. Finally I got that in. So we're talking almost 7.5 weeks, and I finally got in my base game that I could learn the game. I haven't even looked at the expansions. The expansions I opened, I prepped them, I put them away. I just want to play the base game to start. The game is Moonrakers. Moonrakers is a beautiful game. This game's art is unbelievable. The play style is brand new. I've played this through a few times on the solo style. It's my next game up for my game nights. I've let everybody know this is the one I want to play. We're all excited to get this one to the table. I can see Moonrakers being a game that in its base form, I could be playing multiple times a year with my friends, and that I think my wife will get into it if we have a few of my sister and her boyfriend playing. I think that we'll enjoy this game together. We don't usually do co-ops, but the way that this is, and to be fair, this isn't exactly a co-op. This is competitive. But the idea that the game is, it's competitive, but you need to work together. You're gonna have to make alliances. You're gonna have to team up, because otherwise you're never gonna get certain things completed. And that's where the game comes into you have to start figuring out who to trust and when to split things. And you have to realize when it's time to cut somebody off because they're too close to winning. And you have to tell them, okay, I'm out. I can't team with you anymore. You're on your own. It's an interesting setup. I really like it. And it's one that I think is got a chance to rise. We'll see when I have 3-4 more real big plays of it. We'll see where this one ends up because it could be higher up. Number 9. It was my number 1 game for 5 straight years. From the day I played it initially until just about a year ago when it finally got dethroned. Clank, a deck building game. I love Clank. I absolutely love Clank. And the fact that it's fallen down to 9 is not an insult to it. It's just acknowledgement of some other games. It's recognition of new games. And it's a recognition of, you've been number 1 for 5 years for a reason. We're on 6 years in now. And a game can't be number 1 for that long. I play too many games to have the same game stay at the top. It was my most repetitively played. It's no longer my most repetitively played, but I still get this to the table. And I kind of group this as far as total plays with Clank in Space and Clank Legacy. It's a game that I'm playing. I'm always getting in plays of Clank. So this is a played game. I love it. Could it rise again? Yes. In fact, in a few more picks, you're going to start to see why this has an absolute guarantee to rise next year. I'll give explanation later. But this is still a game I love, and it could easily move back up the list. Number 8. Now, we were talking about most played games. This is an example of that. This is the game Azul. I'm kind of shocked that it took this long for it to rise as high on the list, but this year especially, because this is one of the games I'm competing in at the World Series of Board Games, I have literally been playing on Board Game Arena and with family whenever I've had a chance. In the last 4 months, I've probably played a little over 250 games of Azul, trying to get myself used to it, used to the different play styles, what to go for, what's the most regular type of attack. I'm trying to train, but I love it. I never get bored of the game. This game is one of me and my wife's favorites to play together. Her family, it's one of the games that we play the most with them. They bought it immediately after we introduced it to them. I've played it with my friends. I've played it with my family side. It's just a game that's easy to play. I don't mind playing with people I know or going on BGA and playing with strangers. I love Azul. Number 7, 5 Tribes. It's a little surprising it took this long to make it to the top 10 for me. 5 Tribes is one of my all-time favorite games for my wife. Me and my wife have played that game together over 100 times. We love 5 Tribes. We've bought all the expansions. We can go back and forth between playing a base game, base with the first expansion, base with the second expansion, base with both expansions. We've introduced this and played it with other people. We've had okay times with it, and I like it with more people, but we love the game. It's one of our all-time favorite 2-player games. It deserves this spot. Number 6, Skull King. Now, Skull King is a game that I reviewed this year because it's from another game initially, and I reviewed that first. And then they put out a newer edition of it that they renamed as Skull King. So when I bought Skull King to try it out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to use the new name, and I'm going to have to consider it a separate game. So Skull King comes in as number 6. It's a trick-taking game, pirate-themed. They've added in a few extra cards to this, so now there's a treasure card, there's a card for a whale attack, there's a card for an octopus attack. They redid the art on the cards, which was really good. I really enjoyed this game. It's one of my all-time favorite trick-taking games. It's number 6. Number 5, and it's the final of this grouping, Azul Queen's Garden. I really like the concept of what Azul and Queen's Garden does. You still have that idea of, okay, you're going to pick from a spot and you're going to take the ones off it and the other ones drop to the center. But unlike all the other games, which had usually 5, 7, or 9 spots based on if it was 2, 3, or 4 players, this game always starts with just 1. You pick from it, you drop them below. Well, you pick from it, you actually take now that off and you put it to the side, and now a new one is exposed. And the instant that you've picked from that one, it comes off and a new. So you keep adding more and more and more. But even different than that, once one is cleared and there's nothing on it anymore, you flip that tile and it becomes available for a card that now other people can get, because your board, you can only start in the center, and the other spots on the board, before you can place down your tiles, you need to improve the board. And the spots you grab not only are spots to be able to drop more on, they have a pre-printed tile on them, so they still count as something. This is a next level. When I look at the Azul games, Azul and Azul Summer Pavilion for me are 2 fantastic games, and I like the Azul stained glasses of Sintra, but the idea to me is they're all kind of the same difficulty level. Maybe you look at it as like Azul's pretty basic, stained glass and Summer Pavilion kind of go up to like 1.5. This is a next level difficulty, but it's fun. I'm not a big fan of what Stained Glass of Sintra does. I don't dislike the game, I can play it, but it's an occasional. This game, it jumps the level, and it does it because it's an extremely improved game, and that's why it's my number 5. Number 4. Now, we talked about how I was surprised that Clank fell down to 9. Well, part of that reason that it fell to 9 was because I got a brand new version of Clank this year. Clank Catacombs is number 4. This brought an all-new aspect to the game. The idea that on your turn you can place out locations if you move onto a new area and new pieces of the board. So unlike the other games where it wasn't extremely expensive to buy all these expansions for new boards, and every time, whether it was your base game or the expansion, you could always flip the board and have a completely different side. This game was like, well, what if we just had it constantly rotating? And every time you play, it's a completely new board design by the time you're done. I love what this game did. They've added so many pieces that work so much better. The idea that they got rid of the need for you having the key, and now if you want to get through the locked doors, you can collect your lock picks along the way, and that's what's getting you through. But if you unlock it, somebody else can too. So no longer is there the 2 keys for potentially a 4-player game, so 2 people can never go through the locked doors. Now, that doesn't exist. But if you unlock a door, I can go through it too. I think all of that is really cool. There's so many pieces to this that have improved it, but I'm happy that there's still a Clank this high on the list, because I was really shocked when Clank hit number 9. So when I saw Clank Catacombs was 4, it justified it a little bit. Number 3, this is the reason I said Clank itself was going to rise again. And the reason is because next year, this game will not be on the list. And it's not because it's a bad game. It's because we just talked only a few picks ago about the other game that this came from. We had at number 6, Skull King. Number 3 was its original name, Scheming and Skulking. Now, I left this on as a review because I reviewed this first, and then later I found out that they had a new name and a new game, and I ordered it, and then I decided to review it. And I was like, well, if I reviewed it twice, I need to rank it twice. So for this year and this year alone, Scheming and Skulking and Skull King are 2 separate games. But next year, Scheming and Skulking, just like the game itself, which is no longer available, that will be crossed out and eliminated, and Skull King will replace it officially as 100% its own game, and this game will no longer be there. But I'm still getting used to Skull King. I really enjoy it. but there's new cards that give it a different atmosphere, and I've only played this in the 2-player fashion so far. I haven't had an opportunity to push this to 6-player like I have with Skimming and Skulking. And Skimming and Skulking is a game that I finally admitted, man, this is way higher on my list than I thought. It was my most played game for probably about a decade. I played this with my old game group, I played it with my new game group, I played it with my family, with my wife's family. Me and my wife have played this game dozens and dozens of times. It's one of the easiest games to come off my shelf, and I think I just wasn't respecting it enough on my old lists when I would think about what my top games were. It never even cracked the top 20. And I was like, you know what? Realistically, if I went back and I thought about it in those different years, if this game wasn't in the top 5, at least top 10, I'd be shocked. It realistically was. I just wasn't respecting it enough when I was trying to think of my favorite games. It was a card game. It was to the side. I now realize card games are one of my essential style games. And it is a game. So, my number 3, this year only, Scheming and Skulking. Number 2. My number 2 game is a game that I thought was going to be my number 1. It was the game that dethroned Clank. And then it got dethroned only 6 months later. But it still is my number 2, and it was a tight race. This was a 49 to 51, slugfest between these top 2. But Dune Imperium is one of the best games I've learned in years. There's deck building, which I love, but not too much. There's the ability to use your cards to move around the board, and you have to know, what are you buying for cards? Because as you deck build, it's going to determine what else you can do. Are you trying to get certain types of resources? Are you trying to get the extra person so you can keep going? Are you trying to get the temporary points on the side that you only have if you're in the lead? Are you trying to get the permanent point by being at the top? Are you trying to go and get points based on winning battles? Are you trying to go and get the permanent upgrades that you get by investing in so many different pieces of the game that can help improve your deck, your board, your presence? This game is so much fun. I have bought it finally. It was ranked our number 1 game from my groups playing of last year. When we did our 5 of us ranked, 4 of us ranked it our number 1 game played that year, and the 5th person ranked it in the 20s. But 4 people ranking it number 1 knocked that way up. Dune Imperium, without question, one of the best games ever made. And from the same people who made Clank, which shocked me, and then I immediately was like, well, that makes sense, I guess. To dethrone my favorite game with another game from the same people, pretty great. But then we come into our number 1. What was the game that edged this out? That let this thing get played 5 times, 6 times maybe of Dune Imperium, and then Dune Imperium got slaughtered, barely, by the number 1 game, Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War is a game that I saw it and I wanted to back it on Kickstarter, and I didn't. I went, I don't know, maybe it won't be as good as I think. And then I saw it come out again as a, hey, we're still having people jump in. The Kickstarter's over, but the launch day, we have stuff to still buy. And I went, you know what? Let me go invest in a version of this. So I think there was standard, something else, and then deluxe, and I went with the middle one. And then I played the game, and this is the game that introduced me to what a bag builder was. I fell in love with bag builders. I immediately went and bought Quacks at Quedlingberg. My friends were like, oh, I played one like this. We got to play Orleans. But this introduced me to it. And this, to me, is the optimal bag builder. The idea of having a fight for area control. I love area control, but it's all about how you introduce it. And this game's combination of move around the board, try to build up the cards you're going to add to that you're going to grab that will determine what you're going to end up getting from more troops, from more things in your bag. Continue to fight in your battles. How far are you willing to risk it? I love everything about Wonderland's War. It is right now, without question, the most perfect game for me. I have played this with my wife. I played it multiple times with my groups of friends. I want to get this game out with my wife, my sister, and my sister's boyfriend. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of the 2 or 3 choices I put on the table next time they come over. And I'm going to really be pushing them come on, let's play. Let's play. I think you'll love it. At the same time, I'm kind of maybe I should push them with the other 2, because once I play this, I'm both hopeful and scared that it's going to be their favorite. It'll also replace Clank for them, and that the result will be we'll be playing this every time for a while. So I kind of want to play the other 2 games first, where I don't think they're going to fall in love, but they'll have fun, and then come in to play this one, so that this can just take over and be our game for a while. I absolutely love this game. It's one that I expect to see getting to the table more and more and more. I think this upcoming year, if I don't see this game get played at my house with my sister's boyfriend, and my wife at least twice, and if I don't see this game get picked at least 4 times from the Monday night games, and possibly even get pulled out on a Saturday. So I would be putting this in the 2024, or I should say from now until next July, this game could potentially have 7 plays minimum in it. I would be shocked if it doesn't. I feel like this is going to be one of those games that when I get to the end of the year, I'm going to go, wow, 10% of the games I played when it came to big games was Wonderland War. And I hope it is. It's just one of those games that is one that's going to stand the test of time, I hope, for a long time. We'll see how long it holds the number 1 spot. Dune Imperium only had it for 6 months, but Clank had it for 5 years. So how long can this one hold on for? Well, thank you so much for checking in, for watching this worst to best 365 reviews turning into a what is my favorites. I hope you've enjoyed the last 8 days of me counting this down. It has been a blast this past year. I'm not done. I'll be right back into it, but we're going to be changing things up. So going forward with the next year, we're going to have a few different video types coming for you. I'm going to try to continue with the reviews, but at most, I'll be doing 1 review a week. And we'll see how many new games I have the opportunity to see. It may be one that's not as consistent. What I will be adding in is another countdown. This is going to be a 50-week countdown. Once a week, I'll be reviewing an expansion. And at the end of 50 weeks, I will then, over the next 2 weeks, be prepping and putting out, just like I just did these last 8 days, the worst to best of my least to my favorite expansions. So I will be starting those up. Hopefully I'll be having the first video come out next week, but I'll be doing some prep to figure out what expansions I'm choosing and getting that all out for you. I'm also going to be trying to bring in some top 10 lists. The hope would be that not only do I have some top 10 lists, I've also had some friends who've been expressing an interest in trying to possibly work with me in the top 10 list. Now, I don't know if that's going to be them just prepping a top 10 and giving it to me to be included to compare to my own, or more likely that they're going to want to actually come and do this in person. I have now the Snowball mic, which means I don't have to have people mic'd up individually. It's a lot easier to hear each other. So there's a possibility I might have 1 or 2 people come onto the show on occasion to do top 10 lists with me. And if we can do that, that would be a blast. So feel free to comment below if you have any ideas for what you'd like to rank in board games for top 10s. I also put out a poll on YouTube or on Facebook through the different groups that I talk with and I promote this channel on occasion with. And I was asking what they would like to see added to this channel. I wanted to do something that wasn't just pure board games. And I pointed out a few ideas, and I think the one that was pretty much overwhelmingly agreed upon was people would like to see some reviews of the MCU products. So I'm a big MCU fan. I watch every movie, I watch every TV show, and I'm going to have to try to figure out exactly what I'm going to go for. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm going to come up with a ranking system for what it is I'm looking for in those different products. I'm going to go back and chronologically be rewatching everything and then put together little reviews. I'm going to try to keep them short. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to land. We'll have to see as I go through the first few products what it ends up at time-wise. But I want to try to get these set up and try to put out a weekly MCU review and hopefully by the end of the year have completely caught up and be able to start just reviewing in the future every time a new episode comes out or a new movie comes out so that you guys can see what my thoughts are. Do I think that they're progressing well? Are the movies continuing to improve or at least stay consistent, or are they starting to dip? And hopefully you'll see a different opinion on this. I know a lot of people have very differing opinions than me, not because of a like or a dislike of the movie itself, but because of a like or a dislike of where the MCU as a whole is heading. I completely look at these in a different way than a lot of my friends and family do, and so I would love to see if other people think like me or if people are more like them and that maybe I'm the one on the outside here. That being said, definitely going to continue to be putting out new product, new ideas for you guys, and I'm always looking to grow the channel. So I'll be trying to grow it with this MCU idea this year, and then we'll see if I maybe add something in for year 3 down the line. You have been speaking with the Meeple's champion, and until next time, I'll talk to you tomorrow.